Imagine standing in a museum, staring at a medieval painting. One side of the canvas teems with sin figures twisting in envy, mouths wide with gluttony, hands clenched in greed. It's visceral, dramatic. But then your eyes drift to the other side. And there, almost overlooked, are the virtues. Softer, simpler, quieter. They're not shouting. They're not punishing. They just are. And maybe that's part of the problem. The 7 heavenly virtues are not nearly as famous as their sinister counterparts. You could probably list the deadly sins without thinking twice. But the virtues? Most people can name 3, maybe 4, before drawing a blank. And yet, they were designed as direct answers to the sins. Not to shame or scold, but to offer something else entirely. A counterbalance. A path back to ourselves. Today, we're going to explore these forgotten virtues not as rules, not as restrictions, but as ancient psychological wisdom wrapped in spiritual language. We're going to take them seriously, not just as ideals to live up to, but as reflections of our inner life, our struggles, our relationships. Because the virtues aren't about being perfect. They're about being whole. So let's start with where this idea came from. The 7 heavenly virtues weren't actually born alongside the 7 deadly sins. In fact, they came later after the sins had already been identified, cataloged, and used as moral teaching tools. Around the 4th century, a Christian thinker named Prudentius wrote a poem called Psychomachia, which imagined a battle inside the soul between personified virtues and vices. That literary device, a moral war raging within, caught fire. Over time, specific virtues were paired off against specific sins, like knight versus demon. Eventually, church tradition canonized 7 of them: chastity, temperance, charity, diligence, patience, kindness, and humility. Each of them maps directly to a deadly sin. But what's most fascinating isn't just the symmetry, it's what these virtues ask of us, and how they quietly expose what we've come to devalue in modern life. Take chastity, for example. It's become something of a joke in contemporary culture. We hear the word and immediately think of repression, abstinence-only lectures, or medieval purity rings. But chastity, in its original form, wasn't about shame, it was about clarity. Chastity is about seeing the other person not as a thing to possess, not as an object of lust, but as a soul. It's not just the absence of sexual activity, it's the presence of respect, of boundaries, of a love that is not consumed by control. In a world addicted to instant gratification, where everything is swipeable and transactional, chastity is radical. It's saying, I want more than just a body. I want connection. I want intention. Then there's temperance, the virtue that answers gluttony. We think of it as self-control, but that word control can feel rigid. What temperance really offers is balance. It's not about refusing pleasure. It's about knowing when to stop. When to say, that's enough. Enough food. Enough scrolling. Enough outrage. In a culture of excess, temperance teaches us how to return to center, to pause, to listen to our body, to our mind, to our spirit, and ask what we actually need, not what we've been trained to crave. Charity stands against greed, but again, this word has been diluted. Charity has become synonymous with donations, tax write-offs, or virtue signaling on social media. But in its deepest form, charity means caritas love. Not romantic love, not needy love, but selfless, active, other-centered love. A love that serves because it sees dignity in others. Charity doesn't just give money, it gives presence. It says, I see you. In an age of hyper-individualism, where success is often defined by how much you can accumulate, charity reminds us that giving of time, attention, compassion isn't weakness. It's spiritual strength. Then comes diligence, the virtue that answers sloth. Diligence is not just hard work. It's purposeful work. It's devotion to something that matters. Sloth is not mere laziness, it's apathy, disconnection. Diligence is its antidote. It's the choice to care, to engage, to rise each day and try again. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. It's waking up and doing the work not because someone is watching, but because you know it shapes you. Because effort, sustained and humble, becomes character. Patience is the opposite of wrath. And that's easy to say, hard to live. Because wrath feels powerful. It feels righteous. It surges through us like fire. Patience feels like stillness, like surrender. But that stillness is active. It's restraint not out of fear, but out of wisdom. It's saying, I could explode right now, but I'm choosing to listen, to understand, to let the heat pass. Patience isn't passive. It's strength with boundaries. It's the refusal to let anger define your next move. Then there's kindness, the virtue that counters envy. Envy is rooted in comparison. It sees what someone else has and turns it into bitterness. Kindness sees what someone else has and turns it into celebration. It's the ability to admire without needing to possess, to lift others up without needing to pull yourself down. Kindness doesn't require grand gestures. Sometimes it's just a word, a glance, a pause. But in a world wired for competition, where self-worth often feels like a scoreboard, kindness is a quiet rebellion. It says, I don't need to win to be whole. And finally, humility, the antidote to pride. Humility is not humiliation. It's not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. It's seeing your own place in the bigger story. Pride makes us the main character of every moment. Humility reminds us we're part of a shared human journey. It gives us perspective. It lets us say, I don't know. It lets us ask for help. It lets us listen. And in doing so, it opens the door to growth. What's striking about all these virtues is how unglamorous they are. They don't scream, they don't sparkle, they don't trend. They're interior, slow, often invisible. And yet, they are the practices that make real connection possible, that sustain relationships, that build trust, that cultivate peace not just in the world, but in the self. Maybe that's why they've been so easy to forget. They don't reward you instantly. They don't guarantee success, fame, or power. But they offer something deeper: integrity, wholeness, a sense that your life is aligned with something meaningful. And maybe we need that now more than ever. Because the truth is, sin will always be louder. It's easier to market. It's more entertaining. But virtue is enduring. It's not flashy. It's foundational. So the next time you hear someone talk about the 7 deadly sins, remember there's another side to that painting. And it may be quieter, but it's just as real. Maybe even more so. Because while sin tells you what you are afraid to admit, virtue shows you what you are still capable of becoming. Thanks for listening. If this sparks something in you, sit with it, reflect, let it challenge you. These virtues aren't just aspirational, they're ancient wisdom, waiting to be lived again. And maybe, just maybe, they're the better half of the story we forgot to tell.